You might have heard the term check raise in online poker before, but are unsure of how and when to use it to your advantage against your opponents. This video will show a couple of examples of check raising, but let's define what a check raise is first. A check raise is actually a culmination of 3 separate plays by at least 2 players in a single round of betting. Sounds confusing, it's really not. It's basically a sequence of a check by one player, a bet by another player, or at least one player, then a raise by the player who checked in the first place. It's actually a deceptive play that was once frowned upon by traditional poker players because of its sneaky or even dishonorable connotation.
I'll add $40 to my raise. Make the bet fair. And then 50 more.
Whoa, good thing we aren't in the Old West anymore, because check raising is not only allowed in poker, it is a very useful tactic to have in your poker skill set because it can create some immediate benefits like, for instance, more money and adding an element of unpredictability to your own profile. Hey, if you can keep your opponents guessing as to what you are going to do next, then you're probably playing a good game of poker. So let's look at a few good check raising opportunities, and we'll start here with building the pot, which is one of the most common spots for check raising. Here you have a very strong hand and an excellent board where you fully expected one of your opponents to bet, since you believe either one of them could be holding an ace. You are the first to act here and check the flop, as does this player. But this player decides to bet out. Remember the sequence? Check, bet, and then raise. So now you raise to 40. If both players call, then you have definitely built the pot because you got 2 bets out of each player, adding $1.20 as opposed to just 60 cents if you had led out with a bet and got only 2 calls. A bigger pot also means that your opponents may just have to call you down with a weaker hand on more expensive betting streets due to favorable odds, so there is some implied value in this move too. Another opportunity for check raising is when you have a draw on the flop. Here is the exact same positional setup with a different mix of cards in the play. Here you have a decent open-ended straight draw. Check raising here can save yourself a bigger size call on the turn or river, because if you do it now, you might just worry your opponents enough for them to check to you on the turn or river, which are normally double-sized the betting rounds. So the idea is to earn yourself a free card in a lower betting round. This is particularly effective if your opponent's hands are rather mediocre as well, such as these ones. In fact, in some cases, you might even be able to get your opponents to actually fold in similar circumstances, which is also an acceptable outcome. Okay, here's another situation which can work, but is an outright bluff. However, this could be a very dangerous board for your opponents, and they may just decide to give it up right here on a show of strength from you. This is risky, of course, but if you can accurately read your opponent, a check raise here is a rather inexpensive option because it's also a hand you can get away from if your opponents decide to stick around or even re-raise you. Check raising is a good tool for your poker skill set, but really not something to be overused, because sooner than later you're just going to fall into an expensive trap from observant opponents. This is an out-of-position play against predictably aggressive opponents, so if you don't have either of those going for you, you don't really have a check raise opportunity. One of the risks when planning a check raise is if the hand actually gets checked all the way around, meaning one of your opponents does not decide to bet out, and you happen to be sitting on a beauty like this. You, of course, run a higher risk of being drawn out with this type of slow play, and you also invite a multi-way pot whereby your chance of being the winner at the river are dramatically reduced, like it appears on this board. So you want to be like 90% sure that somebody else is going to bet when you've checked to them in these situations, because that's the only way you can make an effective check raise. Getting stuck in a situation like this is actually just going to cost you an opportunity. So it looks like now you can go out and try check raising and add that to your poker skill set. Give it a shot at your next game and analyze its effectiveness at the level you play. And oh yeah, if you run into one of these characters, Yeah, hey, I wouldn't worry too much about it.